Thank you so much, Adam, for that warm introduction. Thank you. My talk obviously called Actionable Segmentation. This talk kind of emerged because Corinne and I work together, and her talk is really strong, and I wanted to build a little compliment to it. Here's about me. My name's Adam. I'm a data scientist at Retina. Before Retina, I worked at BCG on their digital ventures side as a data scientist. And before that, I was at UCLA. I'm a cognitive scientist, and I studied cognition. And through cognition, I learned about human behavior. And through human behavior, I moved to customer behavior. And so it's a pretty natural transition for me. And I really love learning about customer behavior and how do we model it properly and how do we work towards smarter prediction models and things like that. So this talk emerged from a business lunch, as many ideas do. First, I want to point out how weird it is to pull stock images of lunches. This woman is eating a burger, but there's nothing inside it. And it's just very strange. I don't know why she's doing that. This is the best image I found. But this business lunch, there are quite a few VPs or executives of data science teams, and they were complaining or trying to figure out a solution to, we build all these really cool data science models or data science solutions, but they're never used. Maybe you build a Looker or Tableau, and you put it out into the world, and nobody touches it. And I'm sure many of you in the audience have felt this pain. I've definitely felt this pain. How do I get my data science insights that I find very valuable into the hands of people who can use it to take action? And after talking with them and coming up, there's two pieces of data science that I wanted to address, two translations essentially. The first one is the one that comes to mind when we think of data science. We have these difficult problems, and as a data science, you take this problem and you translate it into something statistical. You build a model, you use GLRM, use some method to find an answer to that question. And for most people, that's where their data science would end. And that's where, as we're talking, is the actual problem. There's a second part to data science. It's translating that data science into a business solution. A good example is you say, are my marketing efforts effective? This is a really difficult problem. What do you mean by effective? How do we quantify that in a reasonable way? So there's lots of different ways you can do it, and I'm sure everybody knows. You could run an A/B test on different marketing splits. You can see what the lift or retention is. You can optimize the spend, et cetera, like that. But if you were to take these insights, you run an A/B test, you see these two populations, the difference p-value is 0.04. The marketers or people who respond will say, so what? I don't know what to do with this. I don't know what, meaning that there's two populations are different. And pretty much anyone that is a stakeholder that can take insight on this, if they're not data-minded, like everyone in this room is, it may be a clash. And I think that's where a lot of these projects kind of fall on the cutting room floor. So if we go back here, talking about GLRM, how do I segment customers? Very difficult problem. We have our answer, GLRM, but now we need to move it into a solution. And to take words that I think really sum this up is translating this difficult problem into a data science insight is like diagnosing. You have all these complications. Doctor, what's wrong with me? You can figure it out. We have the solution. You have X, Y, and Z. But if you came to a patient, you said, oh, you have X, Y, and Z, they're not satisfied with it. They want, what do I do now? What's the next part? What's my prescription? And so that's what this talk is going to focus on, a way we took a data science problem we saw. We had an answer, segmentation, and how we applied it to be actionable in a meaningful way. And then another great part about this model is then you can see once you prescribe something to a business, they can try it out, see if it works, and if it doesn't, you go back to that difficult problem. You have this cycle instead of things being stuck in data science. You don't know why you're not solving problems. At least this way, you get a feedback loop. And with that, we found a use case that I want to talk about today. So let's take segmentation. We have all these segments. Who's using this and why? And one person in a business would be a customer service rep. They talk to customers all day, but they also have a workspace called Slack. So many of you, I think, have heard of it. And they use this to interface with each other, but that's their daily medium. They're on the phone, they're on this. We could have run the segmentation and built a dashboard on the backside, and they could go access it, but that's just an extra step for them to get to. If they could, on demand, call the information, it would be much more valuable, especially if they could call on demand the specific customer that they're on the phone with. And so that's what we set up to do. And I have a little live demo for you, just so you can see how it works. I'm going to pull up my company Slack. So if there's anything crazy in there, I apologize in advance. It's not my fault. It's the intern's fault. Well, great. Ignore everything you're reading. But so essentially, Slack allows you to, yes.
Don't make it bigger.
Yeah. So sorry, I got rid of all the fun stuff. But now, so this is the demo essentially, where these things originally, these different pieces you see, the customer data explorer, customer exploration, email lift analysis. These all were originally dashboards, or conceptually were dashboards that people could access. But we realized this was an auxiliary step that people would take in their business daily life, and so they'd rather just be able to pull it up in Slack. So instead of going to a dashboard, just call Slackbot. So an easy one that makes sense is you want to explore your data. Okay, which metric are you looking at? Let's look at the new users from 18 to 24-year-olds over the last 3 months. And obviously this is just a very simple SQL query on the backside, but for people who don't know what that's like, this is a much easier interface. You kind of just pull it up and it's very informative. Wow, our business is doing amazing. Thank you so much. But to get to the customer stuff I was talking about, so we can basically look up a specific customer by their ID as they're on the phone. So this customer 302253 has called me up, is complaining that they ordered a hat 2 months ago and it hasn't shown up. And I can pull the customer data very slowly, and boom, here we go. So this is a customer who's been around since 2015. They're a very loyal customer. I can see their email. I can see all the tickets they've opened up, Zendesk tickets they've opened up. And here's the segment. This is where that application is. So now this has not only context, but has an action you can take right away. You know that this customer on the phone with you who's upset is a high value and alive. And if you don't take action now, that may degrade. But they're definitely worth any intervention that a customer service rep could take at this point. And you can visualize that even and see this difference between their projected LTV, LTV being lifetime value of the customer, what we predict they're going to spend over their lifespan, and what they've spent so far. And so you can justify a certain amount of incentive program that way, maybe a 10% off or maybe a free hat, like depending on how much they're worth to you. But in this context, you can see this isn't a passive experience that somebody has to go. It puts that information, that data science insight, in the hands of someone who can take action with it, and that at that exact moment. And let me see if I can look up another demo we have. Nope, did not work. Okay. But you can see from this that as in the same way you have GLRM building segments, you can take these segments and place them in people's hands that would definitely benefit from that.
Quick question before you move on.
Of course.
So based on the curve that you have, is that reasonable to say in 2015 the customer was a lot more valuable to you because the total revenue that so far you had is far away from your lifetime value because you're showing lifetime value as a fixed amount.
Mm-hmm.
So the more closer it gets to that amount, in effect, the less incremental value it has to be.
I think
Is that reasonable, or the lifetime value should be also?
I think that's an excellent point. You're absolutely right. The point to look at is this 2-year lifetime spend. So this isn't their entire lifetime. This is in 2 years. So as their lifespan hits 2 years, they should hit that mark. That's not the total expense. They could have a 10-year lifetime value. But you are right that in 2015, us predicting that LTV, they have a higher potential, right? We know if they called right then, we should keep them on the line as long as possible because they have so much more to spend. And so you can see people, if they've churned, they've exhausted, they'll hit that 2-year LTV.
So is it possible also that assuming fixed lifetime value is not quite realistic, and maybe that should be also variable? I
think that is an awesome question. And picking the lifetime value is what we do at Retina, and so that's an internal conversation we have all the time. LTV is definitely affected by a lot of things, but what we take pride in is being able to predict it quite accurately from a very early stage. So having it fixed, it may fluctuate, but ideally we found the demographic and the behavioral information that gets as close as possible to that flat number. Yeah. Great. With that, I'm going to jump back to the demo. So first, I hope that was, I pointed out a few things that you can do as a data scientist to push that forward. But what you may be asking yourself, and what I asked myself when we had this question is, I'm just a lowly data scientist. I'm not an engineer. I don't usually build product. Is this engageable for me? But I'm happy to point out that for our users, we've done this quite simply with our plumber, and we have a guide. Actually, my colleague Ahmad has written up a guide for that. So if you wanted to build this out for your company to see, hey, I can produce insights very quickly and very easily for you to consume. For me, I'm more of a Python user. Ngrok and Flask to build a prototype is really simple. I added just a short little script to say the Slack client is really engageable, especially if you know some basic Flask, and it's a great way to produce different presentations for people in your company. I have friends that are using this to show even Google Analytics. You can pull out and put it on Slack. Thank you so much for listening. I put all the walkthroughs and tutorials that helped me or helped Ahmad through, and I hope that this helps you, and maybe you can use it in your data science lifestyle. So thank you so much. And are there any questions? Or did I answer all of them already?
Thank you.
Yeah.
So the demo you showed, is it you built it or some like a collaboration, or you
So the one I showed you, did I build that myself, or is that a collaboration? So the one I showed you is several iterations later, and it's been a collaborative experience. It has some bells and whistles that my first version didn't, but I was able to, on my own, with my data science coding skill set, build the first version and really show the concept I was trying to build out, which I think is the value of being a data science. So you can do the data science and prototype how you want that data distributed. Yeah. Yes, you.
How do we sign up for that Slack workspace group?
Was our resident intern Monita? Can you explain how you sign up for it?
Yeah, so you go on Slack or Safari or Google Chrome, you just type in that URL, customerdatasciencela.slack.com, and sign in.
So I'm there right now, but we'll take it time.
Monita will go one by one through all of you before you leave to sign you up for that channel. That's my guarantee. Yeah. Right. You have a question?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Do you build the database backend for that, or is all the data ready for you for your queries for that?
Yeah. So the first version, again, going from the prototyping to the iteration to where it is now, the production level is a collaborative effort with a Postgres server that we query, and it's built through back pieces. You want to push the data as close as possible to Slack, right? So it's easily interfaced. But again, the prototype version, I had data in there and can be processed. The point of the SQL query is you can help them churn through the data themselves, because a lot of times customers they want to investigate for themselves and find those numbers, right? You can't really guess what they want, but they can. If you give them the tools, they'll find what they like in the data.
Have you embedded any of this engine into like a web app where it would interact without a human, with your customer, without the customer service rep on a headset?
Oh, you mean like a Slack AI bot?
Yeah, like a web bot.
Yeah. Well, I know this bot's going to take my job in like 6 months, so I'm sure it will. But we've especially interfacing with our clients. That's something we're really interested in, answering their questions quickly, so it feels like a person. But we haven't done any NLP. We haven't done anything like interfacing with clients in the Slack space yet. Yeah, but it definitely could be in the roadmap.
When you say that's for customers, do you mean it's for your business clients, like customer service reps to use in their back? Okay.
Yeah, when I say customers, I mean Retina's B2B clients that they use. And they're interfacing, you're right, that's hard wordage. Our clients will install this Slack bot, so their customer service reps, when they get calls into their business, they can interface with their customers properly. Yeah. Yeah, I think this will be my last question. Yeah.
So you mentioned bringing that tool from the dashboard into Slack to drive usage. Is there any plan to bring it back to a dashboard or some more robust environment where there might be more features that's just typical of Slack?
Yeah, that's a great question. And it goes back to the original point of finding that business solution and getting that feedback loop. And so originally we built a dashboard, and it wasn't really in that actionable spot, so we brought it here. But absolutely, if we heard things like we want our Slack bot to do X, Y, and Z, and we just couldn't possibly build something like that, we would go back to a dashboard to be more robust. But ideally, we're going to build that out when it's asked for rather than us preemptively, because that's a lot of sunk cost to build a dashboard that nobody will use. It's the worst feeling ever. Great, thank you so much. Wow. Thank you, Adam. What a great talk. Probably the best talk I've heard in a long time.